Hello, and welcome to Here's the Thing with Robbie and Jose, where we explore relationships through a male and female perspective. With me, as always, is the lovely Robbie.
Hello, Jose.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I just wanted to make a quick note to the listeners. I mentioned it last week. We do have a YouTube channel. We just started doing videos live, not live, videos a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And if you want to watch, maybe you're in the office and you are watching sitcoms and you want to switch over.
Yeah.
Check out our YouTube channel.
Just in case people didn't think we were real, too. So there you go.
Robots.
Yeah, check it out. Let us know what you think.
Yeah.
For sure. How have you been?
Good.
You know, I was thinking about the other day. Something that's weird that we do, everybody does, but it's weird, is when we talk to ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
That's kind of weird, isn't it? Because it's ourselves. It's our own brain. So who are we talking to?
Sometimes if I am by myself for a long period of time, sometimes you just don't hear your own voice. You ever notice that? Like,
so you just need to hear a voice is what you're saying?
I don't know. Maybe. Like, have you ever gone through, let's say on a weekend, you had nothing planned and you didn't speak a word all weekend. By Sunday, you're like, I haven't spoken since like Thursday. And then you have to think about it. Then maybe you say some things out loud.
I was thinking more like when you have to give yourself a pep talk.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? Like,
let's say,
this. Yeah. Like, you got this. Like, go in there, be stern, say this. Or let's say if you're practicing dialogue, you know what I mean? Like, let's say you do have to give a speech or you do have to give a presentation and you're kind of saying that. Or you want to tell somebody off.
Yeah. A good rule of thing. You got to do that in front of a mirror, though.
Yeah, they do it in front of a mirror. But again, it's just a weird, it's a weird thing that we do as people. And I'm just like, why? Why do we do that?
I don't know. Like I said, for me,
I need you to tell me.
I don't know. Like I said, sometimes.
So women do it too. You know what's weird? And I've heard when I'm in a relationship, I can hear them talking to themselves in the other room.
Oh, I don't think I've encountered that before.
You never encountered?
I don't think so.
I have. And I'm like, who are you talking to? And they're like, oh, I'm just talking to myself. I'm like, what?
Okay, so the rule is you can talk to yourself, but not when you're around anybody else. Because then you just look weird.
But sometimes, in this situation, I think they were looking for something or whatever, and they're just
like,
talking.
Where is it?
Yeah, where did I put it last? Where did I? And I'm like, who's she talking to? Why would she? Or if like they're in the bathroom getting ready and stuff, and again they're talking to themselves, and I'm like, who are they talking to? And they're like, oh, I'm just talking to myself.
Maybe it's a comfort thing.
Is it? But it's still weird because you're yourself. So. It's not another person.
I don't know. Maybe, because that pep talk scenario, like if there's no one around and you need to hear a positive word, maybe it's almost like you're mimicking getting that pep talk from someone else.
You ever practice a breakup speech?
Maybe an argument. I don't know. Maybe if I'm trying to get my facts together.
When you formulate your argument you're talking about? Like, I'm going to tell him this if he says this?
Like a lawyer. I'm like, okay, I got to have responses for every possible scenario.
Yeah.
So let me get that straight in my mind.
Or is it more along the lines of like, you don't know how to tell that person something? And you're thinking, okay, what's going to be the best delivery?
Yeah.
How can I word this in such a way that it's not
Yeah, I think that's a normal thing too.
I just thought it was weird. Yeah. I don't know why. I was like, why do we talk to ourselves? I don't know. But anyways, so today's topic is going to be romance. Romance. Because I think I have kind of seen, and we tend to get cynical sometimes, and like romance is dead, and chivalry is dead, and all that other stuff. And I try my best to keep it alive. You know what I mean? I like.
You're just one man, though.
I'm just one man, and I can only do it to one girl. So that's the
So you need to spread that love to other women.
Because I remember again when I was a kid, and I would see the old guys that. Not womanizers exactly, but they kind of were, you know what I mean? But they would always do romantic things and romantic gestures with the way they spoke to women. And like if they would buy them roses or say sweet things, right? Like that was a thing. It's like, it was kind of corny. I remember thinking that's corny.
Yeah.
Nowadays, I don't think it's corny anymore. I think we should do more of that.
Do you think they stopped doing it because women were like, that's corny?
I don't know. That's the thing. I can't figure it out. I don't know if women would just stop being receptive to it or if it's just men just stop doing it just because like we don't need to. Because everything's on Instagram now and everybody, to a certain degree, they're somewhat more upfront now. Maybe because they don't have to do it in person, but they'll DM people like things that you ordinarily wouldn't say in person.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Because there's minimal risk.
Yeah.
Right?
It's like when you're in a car and you like someone makes you mad, you can flip them off and say all this stuff because like you feel like you're not going to have an interaction with that person. So it's like, yeah, I'm tough behind my car.
Exactly. But I will say this, right? Because I think that romance right there, I would say it's more of a universal, right? So if a guy is trying to get a girl and he's trying to be romantic, if he doesn't know much about her, it's going to be a lot different.
You don't know how it's going to land.
Right, because he's going to do very, not generic, but let's say, generic, universal. I was going to say universal, but the same thing, right?
It sounds better.
But it's stuff that everybody would do, and then you don't know. But again, like let's say you, because I know I've asked you before in the past, like how to make a good first impression, and you've told me, take a rose, which I don't like doing, not on the first date, maybe the second or whatever, but I don't like doing it only because I don't know how she's going to feel about it. Could be over the top, and it'd be like, oh, wait a minute, dude. Like,
I think a dozen roses would be over the top.
Maybe, right? But who's to say, right? It's
but a single flower, I don't think that's over the top.
Well, some women don't like roses. Well,
I mean, flowers, it's not about
like they don't like roses. Maybe they like a different.
But we can all appreciate a gesture, even if we don't like that thing. If you buy me a birthday gift and I don't like it, I appreciate the gesture. Right. So why do I have to tell you I hate your gift?
But that's what I'm saying. So at the very beginning, that's why it's so difficult to do something like that.
Yeah.
About the best you can do is maybe take it. I will say this, right? Especially if it's a first date, the first thing that I usually ask is like, okay, are you allergic to anything?
That's a first date question?
Well, because I'm trying to set up a date. So if I need to set up a date, I need to know, are you allergic to shellfish or are you...
No one has ever asked me my allergies before a first date.
Well, yeah, anyways, yeah, fair enough. But I'm telling you, because I've done that before, where you set up this date and let's say you go for a nice seafood dinner, as they do, and then you get there and she's like, oh yeah, like I can't eat seafood.
Why wouldn't you just ask what's your favorite food if you're trying to pick a restaurant?
We could do that. But again, even then, maybe that's a transitional question. It's like, what's your favorite restaurant? I like Italian. Okay, great. Just out of curiosity, is there anything in particular that like we need to stay away from or that you don't eat or whatever?
That can't be a standard question.
Well, it's not. But I've learned over the years to ask it.
Okay.
Because I've done things where I'll take them to a restaurant and they're like, let's say a steakhouse, and they're like, oh, I'm a vegetarian. It's like, well, crap, I didn't know that. Or that seafood place, and they're like, oh, I'm allergic to seafood. And it's like, okay, so she's got to eat chicken. And if I had known this ahead of time, I can prepare better. Because now she's sitting there thinking, I'm not going to really enjoy this meal. Plus, I have to smell Now, granted, she has to agree to the restaurant, but sometimes women are a little more accommodating. So they don't say anything until once we're there, and then by then it's too late.
At that point, I don't think the woman has the right to say anything. If you didn't say anything before, and then you get to the restaurant, and then you're going to complain about that, that's on the woman.
Fair enough. But to me, it's something that I like to ask, right? Because you can't ask too many questions, but you do, especially on the first date, you want to gauge, proximity. Because again, that's the other thing. Like Dallas being so big. It could be, you can drive 40 minutes and still be in Dallas, right? Like it's on the other side. And then once you get into neighboring counties or whatever, again, you don't know. I live one place, but they might live somewhere further. And so you don't know if they want to meet in the middle or if they're more comfortable in their area or whatever the restaurants are. But anyways, it's hard. I will say this, when it comes to romance, I think romance increases, or it should increase the further you go along in the relationship. Because what I've learned is that there is no universal romantic thing. It does have to do with gestures and paying attention, but it's very specific to the woman.
Right.
Because some women don't like flowers at all. Some do. Some don't like roses. Some don't like tulips. Like, you just don't know. But as you start dating them, you can ask these sorts of questions and get this information. It makes it a lot easier to romance them, because now I'm like, okay, I know exactly what she likes and exactly what she doesn't like. So I know that, let's say I plan this big romantic dinner at this high-end restaurant, but that's not her thing. She's just never been into that. It's like, okay, don't do that because you're going to waste your time.
Yeah.
It's great that your heart's in the right place, but you're gonna miss it completely, because that's, if anything, it might sour the relationship a little bit because she might be like, he doesn't pay attention.
It just made me think of something else of the romance increasing the longer you've been together once you create inside jokes and things like that.
Yeah.
So I was just thinking, like, let's say that you two love to watch The Office.
Right.
Okay. And then as a sweet joke or whatever, I get you the mug, right, as a gift.
Yeah.
But if I started dating somebody and I showed up with the mug for a TV show,
Right.
they'd be like,
Exactly. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Why would you do that? But it's absolutely right. You have to be very specific. So some women like the big romantic gestures. Others don't.
Yeah.
Others like it to be more subtle.
Yeah.
Or be more personable.
Yeah.
Right. And say, do it something specific for me, not just this generic.
Yeah, or the big thing, like if she's doesn't like to be the center of attention, and then you create this elaborate like proposal somewhere very public or whatever. Yeah,
she's gonna be mad.
Know your audience.
Sometimes guys will do that, and this is the other thing guys get wrong. Is they like to tease them. And don't get me wrong, I know women like to be teased, but you got to be careful.
Are you talking about the shoe thing?
No, I'm just talking about that. Like, let's say that the big giant gestures that they make. And if I know that my girl doesn't like that, but as a gag.
Oh,
I'm
like when you
going
tell
to
the
do
waiters it's their birthday and then they sing happy birthday.
And they're like, I don't like the attention. And so you're doing it as a gag, playful, but you even got to be careful depending on
women don't like that. You better not be doing anything that you know that I don't like.
Right. If they've given a boundary and they said, I don't like this, you really do need to respect it. Boys, when we revert back to children, we're like, ooh, this is an opportunity to tease her about this specific
pull on
thing
her
that
hair.
She doesn't like.
Yeah.
Like, let's say somebody doesn't like their feet to be touched or something, and then you're hanging out and all of a sudden you start grabbing their feet or whatever and they're like ticklish. Again, they don't like it.
You give her like a pedicure gift card.
Well, yeah. even at that, right? She's not gonna be too happy about that. But I think if you really pay attention, and that's the other thing, it doesn't need to be an over-the-top, huge gesture. Mm-hmm. If you really get to know that person, you can do things. Now, so again, it could be something very small, very, whatever. Let's say it could be like, let's say you're together and she keeps on saying, oh, yeah, it's getting about that time my oil needs to be changed or something like that. It's not necessarily a romantic gesture, but trust me, it's going to mean a lot to her. And it could...
It kind of is romantic because you're trying to make sure that I'm taken care of, which is the whole point of you doing that.
Yeah, you get up early in the morning, you're like, hey, babe, I already made an appointment. I'm going to take your car to go get the oil change, stay in bed.
That's you trying to take care of me as a partner.
Right. So it doesn't have to be this elaborate thing, right? Mm-hmm. Romance, to me, more implies like you're still trying to woo. Yeah. And I think that's the other bit, right? That's the second bit. Is that you should still continue to pursue your partner. Mm-hmm. I think it's way more fun when you're with somebody. You know what I mean? Because obviously you can flirt with strangers all day long. Like you can flirt with anybody, right?
Yeah.
It's great. It's fun and maybe a little exciting. But you never know how they're going to take it too. They could just give you like the stink eye or, you know what I mean? They could think it's inappropriate, whatever. But if you have a romantic partner and you flirt with them, it's a lot easier.
Right. It means something.
Yeah. Because again, you're going to get it back, but also it just reminds them we're still in a romantic relationship. It's not just we're roommates.
I feel like that's advice I give anytime anyone's ever asked of just like, you have to continue to court your spouse. I'm not saying that it can't work out if you don't, but I can almost guarantee as long as you're decent people, you're going to have a good marriage if you continue on both sides, not just one. Both people continue to try to court that other person. And that could mean romantic gestures, or it could mean, keeping yourself up, keeping yourself attractive for your partner.
It could be going for a walk together.
Yeah.
As simple as that, right? If your partner really likes to go for walks and let's say you don't, but as a romantic gesture, like, hey, you want company today? They'll be like, yes, please. Yeah. And then you're like, all right, let's go. And so you go and you have a good chat or whatever the case may be. Again, it's very specific to that person.
Yeah.
And I think you do have to continue courting them because obviously you're going to know who they are.
Yeah.
So if they're shy or introverts, you know that. And if they're extroverts, again, you would know that too. Mm-hmm. So for them, a big elaborate party for their birthday would be right up their alley. Like, absolutely, let's do that. I've been wanting that. It's like, okay, cool. I think paying attention. That's why I think it's a lot easier to romance people as you get to know them as the relationship progresses. What tends to happen a lot of times is that you just stop.
Yeah.
And guys do it too. I've been guilty of doing this where you're like, I already got her. So like, I'm done.
I hate that.
Like, what else do you want me to do? You know, but I mean, you know, it's not that bad. But yeah, people tend to like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't need to.
Yeah.
You know, it's a typical thing. You wake up in the morning. Let's say you live with one another. You wake up. You say good morning, fair enough, but then, you know, guy gets on his phone, she gets on her phone. And again, if it works, I'm not saying it doesn't work, right? But if you start to, again, you're acting more like roommates that just occasionally have sex, that's usually not a good thing. And so
maybe
I think
for some people it may work if they both like it like that.
Maybe. That's what I'm saying. Everybody's different. But I think when it comes to romance, again, when we say romance, it doesn't need to be this elaborate thing. It could be just small gestures, like maybe getting a cup of coffee from her early in the morning.
Well, I was just thinking, like, even when you talked about like getting to know what they like, it's the same thing with the love languages. Once you find out what your partner's love language is, if you start giving that to them, they're going to be way more receptive. Again, you wouldn't know that. I mean, if I meet you, you can tell me what your love language is, but this happens all the time. What we think ours is not actually what it is. It's something else. Right. So you can ask me and I think it's the truth, but yeah, once you get to know someone and those little things, if it is acts of service or something like that, that could be romantic.
So then the other question I had as I was thinking about this particular topic was how men and women differ in how they show romantic gestures, right? Because for guys, it might be, you know, we sometimes tend to go over the top and sometimes we don't pay attention, right? So for us, it's like, okay, I'm going to take her out to this really nice place for dinner. I'm going to get her roses. And again, I'm not saying that those things aren't romantic or whatever, but it's not very specific. And so they're almost kind of overt and big, you know what I mean? Like, or if they're going to propose to somebody, they invite everybody over and it's just place that they've never been to, and then they bring out the people playing, you know, like they're bringing music, not mariachis, but you know what I mean? Like there's a band or whatever, the violinist comes out. It's always like this big, giant, elaborate thing, and guys tend to do that. I've seen that. Anybody can go on Instagram or TikTok and find those sorts of things. But I don't know what that looks like for women. From what I've read, it's way more subtle than that. It's more acts of service that you ladies like to be romantic. And so you and I were talking about that earlier, right? And you asked me a really good question. It's, well, how do men want to be romanced? And quite honestly, I don't know the answer to that question. And I think part of it is, again, men aren't accustomed to being romanced. Is about the only thing that I can come up with. And because we're not accustomed to it or we're not expecting it at all, when we do receive it, we don't know we wouldn't know. We'd be surprised pleasantly, I'm assuming, right? But we just don't know. Yeah.
I was just thinking, on more than one occasion, I have sent things to boyfriends' jobs, and I've sent flowers, like a bouquet of flowers to one of my boyfriend's jobs.
How did that go over? Did it go over well?
He loved it.
Did he?
Yeah.
I you know what? I don't know what I would do if anybody ever sent me flowers. That is, okay, cool. Did you ask him how did he at the time, or did he just like tell you?
No, he thought it was cute and sweet, and like no one's ever done this for me ever. They were very appreciative. You know how I am about gifts. I laugh
because I just never have heard that before.
Oh, I do that all the time. Send like cookies, like Tiff's treats or something.
That makes sense.
Well, I'm just saying, like I've sent balloons, flowers, whatever. I think anyone would appreciate that. I'm not saying it's your jam, but like for men. In my experience, when you do things like that, where they have maybe in their whole lives, no woman has ever done anything remotely like that. That's going to hit almost every time. Because they're like, no woman has ever done these things before.
No, I can totally see it. Yeah. I mean, in most cases for me, it's been, they try to surprise me. So I might, like, let's say we were going to have dinner and we were going to have dinner at her place or something. Or maybe we're supposed to go out and then I get there and then she kind of changes it up and, you know, might be wearing this like a sexy nightie. And it's like, oh, wasn't expecting that, right? And so that's romantic. Obviously, it's way more, you know, sensual and all that other stuff. So that's happened to me before. The only problem with that is, again, I was expecting one thing. I get the surprise as part of it, but again, like sometimes that'll throw me off a little bit too, because I was like, oh,
you have to be in the mood to be surprised.
Well, yeah.
I mean, like sometimes, it's like, I don't know if I like it either way. Like I don't have a feeling about surprises, but like, yeah, sometimes you may not be in the mood for a particular surprise.
Surprises are one of those. I mean, I enjoy surprises.
Yeah.
But again, you're right. I think you need to, like, they don't know what's going on. It's a surprise.
Yeah.
So I could have been having a really crappy day.
Yeah. Like, what if you just lost your job and then you come home and she's like, look at me, look what I'm wearing. And you're like, and you don't want to be rude. So it's like,
you don't, because that's the thing. Like, if that romantic, like you said, when guys do it, women, you guys are really good. Even if that's not your thing, you still kind of play along and, show your appreciation because of the sentiment. But a guy, and even if he kind of plays along, it's going to be different, because he might be like, I'm really not in the mood. She might take it wrong after that and think like, what did I do? But obviously if it's something like you lost your job, hopefully she would be understanding, but still it kind of ruins and dampens the moment a little bit, because she had one thing in mind and how she thought that night was going to end. Yeah. And obviously that was the furthest thing from your mind.
Yeah.
So, but so you, besides sending flowers to a guy, what other ways do women in general, or do you like to show a romantic gesture to your?
Well, it's hard to say what you may think a romantic gesture is, but I do try to pay attention to my partner, what they like, and gift giving is one of my things. I love to buy gifts. So, is getting you something that I know that you needed, is that romantic, or is that just?
Yeah, it's
or not needed, maybe just like this thing is for you, it was meant for you.
Yeah, I think for men, we do like when you guys pay attention to us too. I know women like it for sure.
Yeah.
But we like it too. We like it when you guys, not humorous, right? I will say that it's not cool whenever we're telling you something and you're just kind of like, and we can tell you're just in us. You know what I mean? Like you could be the last thing on your mind. You're not very interested in it, but obviously your dude is happy about it and he's excited, so you want to listen to him. It just has to come off as genuine. You know what I mean? And if you really, depending on, like you said, if you get him a gift that has to do with whatever his interest in, and it's like a real deal, like you were paying attention, that goes a long way. Yeah. Because then that tells us, oh yeah, she does care about me.
And also too, I don't know if this is a romantic thing, but like, I try really hard to read the room, right? So if I am with this person for a long period of time and I know them and I can tell, right, if you come in and I know you've had a hard day, even if you told me everything, my job is to be that soft support. Whatever it is that you need, I'm saying based on what you're going through, I need to be a safe space for you. Yeah. And from what I know, that's what a lot of men want. It's like, we want a soft woman. You just have to be soft. You have to be a safe space for us, because being a man, it's hard. Right. And we don't want to come home after that and then you're just going in on me, blah, blah, blah. Right. I'm not saying if I didn't deserve it, but just to go in all the time, and just like, or if you come to me and you say like, I'm going through this thing, and I'm like, Jose, I don't really have time to talk about it. So like, just buck up. Like, what are you,
No, I think that's a great way to look at that, right? Because guys do sometimes, even if it necessarily isn't a bad day, but maybe it was just a long day, just a lot of stuff came up. And if you come home and if you see that he's doing that, and if they're extra nice, we will pay attention. Yeah. Now, again, if she's having a bad day, you might have to relook at that for a second, because then you're like, okay, she's having a bad day. I had a bad day, but hopefully we can make it work. But yeah, that does mean a lot, right? When we don't, because, and even at that, sometimes even just respecting our wishes, because let's say we come home and we genuinely don't want to talk about it. And we're not saying that we want to be left alone. Mm-hmm. We just don't want to talk about that specific thing at that moment. If they continue to insist and like one way or the other going to get it out of you, or like, oh, you're being emotionally unavailable and all this, and start to guilt us into talking, that's when I'm like, oh, okay.
Well, I will say, I've said it before in the past. If that's the case, you men need to tell us it has nothing to do with you. It's about this thing.
Work.
It's work. It's all what I do. I mean, I can only speak for me, and there's got to be more women that are like me. So make sure that I know it's not about me, and we can drop it.
Yeah. No, I feel the same way. I usually don't push, right? If if I'm with someone and they're having a bad day or whatever, and they might say it in passing, like, this so-and-so, I had a bad day or whatever. I'd be like, you want to talk about it? And if they're like, no, not right now, or I'm just trying to forget, it's like, okay, cool. We'll steer the conversation in a different direction. But
maybe it's just, I'm not that curious. Maybe it's just women are like curious and they can't let it, even if you say, like, let's say you're having problems with Bob at work and she knows it's that. Why would I sit there and be like, come on, let's talk about it. You feel better. Like, why would I, like, no, I don't want to talk about Bob just as much as you don't want to talk about him.
Well, because I think, I think what's happened is, because there is a utility, right? People have feelings. Now, here's the thing about feelings, right? Feelings, they're going to come and go. And sometimes, you're going to feel sad, you're going to be happy, all those things. And so you need to be able to express it. And I think what we learn now is if you bottle stuff up too much, it's not always great. What we also know is that sometimes people, the way they process things is on their own and they can get over it. But I think especially, and I could be wrong, but the sense that I get is from those people is they feel like, again, if I'm with somebody and then that person asks me and I said, I don't really want to talk about it, even if it has nothing to do with, even if I were to say, well, it has nothing to do with you, it's work and I really don't want to talk about it. For whatever reason, they feel, or what I've heard is they feel that they're being shut out of their life. So they're like, how can we ever be together? If you're not willing to tell
me everything.
Right. It's almost like you're keeping it from me, which is not really the case. I'm not keeping it from you.
Yeah.
I just don't want to talk about it.
Do you think maybe women do that
difference
because they think that you're going to find another woman to fulfill that? Do you think that's why
I think for women, again, I don't want to speak for women because, again, you're right here, but I think when you get into the emotional side, it's a greater connection. It's a different type of connection that you have. So if you can't tell me about it, who can you tell? And I think that's what it is. It's like, okay, I'm trying to be your partner. I'm trying to know everything about you and you don't want to tell me. So are you not want to be with me? Because that's that next thing. It's like, if you don't want to be with me, it's like, whoa.
I wouldn't care if there was something you wanted to keep to yourself. If it had nothing to do with us and you wanted to keep that to yourself, I wouldn't care. If I found out that you told Julie all about it.
Who, Julie from work?
Yeah, Julie from work.
Oh, but she's a saint. It's different. Julie is different.
I'm just saying that's the difference. If you don't want to talk about Bob from work, I don't need to know anything about it. You can handle it on your own, and then that's fine.
But Julie, that's different.
If you told her.
Okay, so just don't tell her. Well,
I'm saying, okay, Jose, you're laughing, but you're not. If you were married and your wife went to her male coworker
no, I get
to
you,
tell,
okay,
no, I'm so kidding, why is it funny?
It's not funny. I'm just laughing because, yeah, you're right. I mean, again, chances are now. In that scenario, if it was work, yes, I think it's a good idea not to tell anybody, right? If you really want to keep it to yourself, you can do that. I will say, and I'm not whatever, but let's say Julie's at work and it was a work thing, right? It has nothing to do with my spouse. Julie would probably understand a lot better. If I'm having a problem with Bob, she might understand because she knows Bob. So I would have to explain sometimes to my wife the entire relationship that I have. And I've done that before too, to give it context, right? Because people will say, what's wrong? And I'm like, okay, well, let me start from the beginning. Bob and I were working on a project and, we just kind of got the Bob's recently this and that, and he's this kind of guy. And so you have to bring them up to speed, which I think is a good idea. Don't get me wrong. That's what I'm saying. But you're right. If you are going to talk about it, if you really just genuinely don't want to speak to anybody about it, then don't.
Yeah.
If you do, you should speak to your spouse, Yeah. Again, sometimes, and this happens too, it's not that we want to keep it from you. We also don't want to burden you with it. Because even in the back of our minds, we know it's nonsense. It's dumb.
Yeah.
It's stupid. You know what I mean? And I'm here, let's say I'm having a nice dinner with my partner or whatever. I don't want to talk about Bob right now.
Yeah.
I just don't want to talk about him. Because I would have to bring you up to speed to everything. And then secondly, it's dumb.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just dumb. So again, I'm not saying that keeping secrets is good, but I know we're talking about romance, but I think reading the room and understanding the person, because I think and I've heard like older couples, back in the day, And grandpa had something going on, you just left grandpa alone. You just let him have his scotch and sit on the couch and let him process it, and he's fine. He'll be fine.
He'll go in his shop in the back.
Yeah. That's how you know. And people know that, right? People know that, especially the more you spend time with people, you might eventually develop that understanding. Yeah. It's like, I know he's not mad at me. He's just, if he's out in the tool shed, he's upset about something, but he's going to work it out. He'll figure it out. And then when he's ready to talk, he'll talk to me. Because I think, guys do like to share feelings. We just don't like it thrown back at our face. But
would a man consider that of me being romantic, of trying to do that?
I think so, because that's usually, and you never, when you find a partner like that, right? Because it speaks to not necessarily the romantic gestures exactly, but it speaks more to that person understands me. They don't need to be like me, but they understand me. They understand what I need. And because they understand, to me, that means that they love me.
Yeah.
They care about me. And all of us like to be understood. Like who of us don't want that, right? I've been misunderstood for a lot of things. Whenever I say something, they're like, oh, I took it this way. I'm like, whoa, that's not what I meant. But if your partner can do that without you actually having to vocalize it all the time, that's a different thing. Like maybe initially you say it, and then over time you figure out, oh, that's what, And the same thing with a guy. He should pay attention to his wife or girlfriend or whatever. And when she's doing certain things, he might be like, oh, I know exactly why, she's knitting again. Or she needs to go for a walk. Like she came home and went straight for a walk. I know something's bothering her.
Yeah, but women kind of mess that up for us, though, because when you guys ask us what's wrong and we say we're fine or whatever, we've gotten so conditioned to say that we may still want to talk about it, though.
I know, and I hate that.
I would say, like, I do want to discuss this, but just not right at this moment.
Right. Usually when they say that to me, like 5 minutes later, that's when they want to.
And another thing.
But you're right. So essentially, you open up that door. So I usually will do that. I'll say, hey, you seem like you're upset. Whatever. You want to talk about it. And let's say you were to say, like, yeah, I don't want to talk about it right now. Like, all right, cool. Well, when you're ready, I'm available. Yeah. So then again, let's say we start, cooking dinner, and then all of a sudden it's like, you know what happened?
Yeah.
Like what?
And that's fine. That tactic works too. Just try to get their minds off of it. It'll come out.
It has to, right? Because if it's weighing on your mind as much, even if you try to have another, let's say you wanted to change the subject and we start, if I see that you genuinely change the subject and whatever the new topic is has nothing to do with the other and you're laughing and giggling, then I know you've compartmentalized and you have those two separated.
Yeah.
If, however, you say, let's talk about something else, and I bring up something totally random, inside joke, whatever, and you're not reciprocating, I can see that you're stuck.
Yeah.
And you're not in the moment, because your mind is somewhere else, then I'm like, all right. So then I might ease up a little bit.
Yeah.
Because then it's like, and actually what ends up happening is I start being quiet. And then just not in an aggressive way, but just quiet. Because I'm just going to let it's bubbling up. It's coming.
Yeah.
It's coming. And then sure enough, after a while, it's just going to start pouring out. And so it's like, you just have to let it manifest itself.
I was just thinking another kind of romantic thing that goes along with like knowing your partner in those scenarios, knowing how to soothe your partner without having to ask them. Yeah. Instead of having to say like, what is that you need from me? Like if I know my partner and his best way to, I guess, de-stress is maybe he lays on the couch, he has his head in my lap and I'm, rubbing his hair, like playing with it or something because it's soothing, right? If I know that that's his comfort place or whatever, I'm going to do those things. Like, I'm not going to say like, let's talk about Bob. It's like, hey baby, come over here, lay down. Let me scratch your head.
Yeah. And I think that's the other bit that I was going to go to. So more often than not, what ends up happening is the guy will do a romantic gesture. Let's say they've been dating for a while. And he does a romantic gesture, but it's not specific to her. Again, he's just trying to do this elaborate, what he thinks would be a romantic gesture, right? And then it misses because he'll tell when it misses. Even if you women are very polite and very agreeable, but he'll know he misses. And then later on, he tries to do it again, kind of the same situation. He's not really paying attention. So what ends up happening is he keeps on missing the mark. Eventually, he'll stop trying. Because he's like, every time I try to do something, it's blowing up in my face. And on the woman's side, I'm sure she's thinking like, this guy's given up. He's not even trying anymore, right? But the disconnect being the fact that he's really not paying attention to her. His heart is in the right place. He probably has the right sentiment, but for whatever reason, he's projecting what he thinks to be romantic versus what she actually finds romantic.
In that scenario, let's say that you tried this big thing with me and it misses, and then you try it again on the second time. If I go to you and say, babe, I know this is really sweet, but I don't like this thing, would you take that? Would you be upset, or would you be like, well, what is it that you like? And then I'm saying, oh, like I like this, I prefer this type of thing instead. And then you do that the third time, and then isn't it resolved? Or would you feel bad?
I, as a dude, yeah, for sure. I would take that feedback.
Okay.
I am actually, I'm not going to say I'm sneaky about it, but through conversations, I will find out what you like and don't like through conversations, right? And that's really how you're extracting information, right? Whether you're interrogating somebody or you just met a new friend, like you don't know what kind of persons they are. So you through talking and bringing things up, you'll find out, oh, do I like this person or do I not like this person? Can we be friends? Can we not be friends? And so I try to the art of conversation, I think, is another thing that really leads into romance, because once you start extracting this data, it's going to make it a lot easier. Now, if you genuinely are interested in the other person, like genuinely, it shouldn't be a problem, right? But to your point, when that happens and they miss the mark, I think having a sit down and saying, look, the gesture was amazing, the sentiment, you're right there, but I'm a little bit more of this. Now, some people might say, well, that kind of kills the romance a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, it kills it. That's why I'm saying it's much better if you learn these things ahead of time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you can do that just the way I do it sometimes, is you can have little playful games with the other person. You know what I mean? Like, you're getting to know one another. And so you might ask them, do you prefer sunsets or sunrises? Do you prefer, al fresco, or do you prefer, dining in? You know what I mean? Like, if you were going to go to a country. And so you're learning all these things about them without interrogating them. And you can bring it up in other ways, but sometimes just as a game, a playful game, you can play this and play that. And then you're going to get to know what kind of sense of humor they have. You'll understand, what their interests are. It's like, hey, do you prefer going out to a big fancy restaurant or just like a dive bar or something? Like what is it that you get? So once you start extracting that, and again, this is the other part, and I will say this. In the dating world, it tends to happen more often than not. People date multiple people at the same time. When you do that, just understand it makes it that much harder to find something real. Because just like anything else, if you try to multitask, and I'm not saying, because again, we know we can't multitask, but you're trying to do too many things at one time, you're just begging for a disaster.
You can either have one serious relationship or 5 surface level ones,
right?
Because you can't devote that time to 5 people.
And I think everybody, to some degree or the other, has been through that. But the moment that you have multiple people that you're trying to woo or court or whatever, you're going to get yourself in trouble. And most of the time, what I've seen, it doesn't work out with any of them. You have a much better chance of picking one person and focusing your attention and learning everything about that one individual and what they like and what they don't like. You have a much better shot.
Yeah.
Because then again, if they're receptive and they're paying attention to what you like, even if you're different, even you don't have to agree on everything, but if they get you, just getting you, it's like, I'm there. Yeah. Like, I'm yours. I'm putting in your hands. Like, this is great. It's like, great. We don't agree. You like the Cowboys and I like the the Patriots, whatever. Like, again, it that's fine. But you get me, and so on my birthday, you get me, Patriots or Cowboy stuff, like my favorite team, even though or yours is different. That's what I'm talking about. But yes, I think when they try these elaborate things, their heart's in the right place. The execution is just not there. And that's why I think that they really should pay attention to. Now, again, some people are very specific in what they like, and they'll tell them exactly what they like. But yeah, I mean, I think you have to talk to them. I don't think you can get away from from that. Because if not, you're just going to keep on, he's going to make all these gestures and keep on missing the mark.
Yeah. I think we talked about that maybe in like the gifts episode or something, where I was saying like, I'm not saying I'm going to be mean about it, but if you do this big elaborate thing and I don't want to be the center of attention anywhere, I would tell you, I'm like, just like I said, like, look, this was really sweet. I get what you were going with it, but I don't like to be the center of attention. It makes me very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Can you please not do like this in the future? Like, because like, why would, and then what if I am faking it, right? And I'm just like, oh, I love it. And everyone's clapping or whatever the situation is. A limo pulls up and it's balloons are flying out of it. I don't know. And then I feel uncomfortable and I pretend that I like it. Then like, you're going to continue to put me in those uncomfortable situations because I didn't speak up.
Yes.
I think you should tell people what you like and what you don't like.
But that's the price you pay for being No, but I love that. I think guys, I really, and obviously not everybody's not doing it, right? But I wish guys would really do that more often. And I think, so I did kind of do a little bit of research, right? When I was looking this up and they were saying that again, men tend to be more romantic than women. Mm-hmm. Part of it has to do with men tend to fall in love at first sight, and there's like a high percentage, and women don't do that very often. Which is just a weird thing, but I've had buddies too, and don't get me wrong, I've even dated a woman where their profile picture did them no justice, right? Mm-hmm. And then I see them in person, I'm like, holy crap! Like, oh my gosh, like she's. Now I'm not saying it's love exactly, but obviously I'm extremely attracted. Like it could be like I don't know, could develop into something, but typically that's the first. They grab you, and then after that, once you get to know them, you really fall deeply. And so that's when you start doing all these romantic gestures and whatnot. Mm. Women are a little more practical about it and they slow it down. So a lot of times they'll kind of wait to get to know the guy and see if he's really got something going for him. Is he genuine? Is he a good guy? How does he treat other people, et cetera? And then after all of those things, and then you like everything that he does, a woman can genuinely fall in love. It's like, okay, I do like, he's okay looking.
Yeah. Yeah,
he's no Dwayne Johnson, but but he's a good guy, and so you fall in love with that good guy or whatever. So guys, once they fall head over heels, like we're constantly doing whatever we can to make you guys happy. I think as a guy, and I've said this before too, if I really, really, really like a woman, there's really not much that I won't do to try to make her smile and make her laugh. And, because I enjoy those sorts of things.
So you'd have to do that as like a substitute for, let's say if you were with a woman who didn't like typical romantic-y things. Yeah. That's how you would do it for her, is just like to make her feel loved in whatever way that works for her.
Well, it's an interesting thing. Because I consider myself a romantic kind of guy. I do. And I guess if I was dating somebody that was much more subtle, I don't know if I could actually be with them too much. You know what I mean? Mm. Because I get it's not that they don't like me back. They're going to like me a certain way, but it would be difficult. I would have to relearn what I know about romance, if that makes sense, right? Mm. Because again, if she's just like for me, a romantic night is just staying in and having a glass of wine. Mm-hmm. It's like, that's great, right? We could do that every weekend if you want to, right? But again, it's like maybe sometimes I do want to go out and show off and dress up, or I would like to do these things that I would love to do for you, but I know you're not into it at all. Yeah. So I'm just not. You know what I mean? Yeah. I can't, because
I've had plenty of romantic gestures that it was like more of their interest than mine. Right. And that is very disappointing, especially if you've been with someone for a while. It's like if you try to take me like camping, you should know that I don't like that. Yeah. So you trying to be romantic out in the woods with no electricity, nowhere for me to go to the bathroom, like all these things, like that's not going to land with me. I know you like it. You love to go out there and camp, but
for me, not so much anymore, because I used to when I was younger. But you're right, all those things that you said, I'm not wild about it.
But that's what I'm saying. Like some guys would be like, "Oh, well, like I don't know. this tent is like the good tent, and like we got us this place, and like because he likes that stuff, he's gonna be like, oh, I'm romancing her, but
but he's missing mine. Women can sometimes do that too, right? So like, let's say a guy, he's he's not into big elaborate things either, right? He's a little more subtle. So then he comes over to your house, like, you're having dinner at home, and so he goes over to your place. And there's like candle lights everywhere and soft music. And don't get me wrong, it's not like he hates it, but you know what I mean? Like,
I'm doing it more for me.
Right. Yeah. Like that's putting you in the mood. It's not doing anything for me, like extra. Like I'm here for a meal and I thought we were going to have a good meal. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But like all this other stuff, or if he sees like petals and stuff or whatever, he's just like, okay.
Maybe it puts a lot of pressure on the dude too.
It does, because that's what I'm saying. Because you
like,
can't,
tonight better go really well.
Well, you can't say also, you can't go around saying like, this doesn't do it for me. But again, if you know the guy, and that's not something that he does, that's not something that he's really into, then, don't do that.
Right.
And if you are, do it for yourself. But if he's not all gushy over it, you can't get mad at the guy because he's like, this isn't really me, right? Like I'm more of a steak and potatoes or a hamburger kind of guy. Like this is beautiful. But
I'm not saying he wouldn't appreciate a home cooked meal, but there are some guys that they love to go out to eat. It's the whole experience. Yeah. So cooking a home cooked meal for that guy, again, I'm just going to be hurt because I've been slaving in the kitchen for hours. Right. You don't appreciate it, but I should have known. Right.
Well, and you hear this, I hear like on TVs and stuff, and sometimes even real people will say, it's like, I'm just trying to do something nice. And it's like, no, I get that. But understand that that's not who I am. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like, I get that you're trying to be nice, but that's just not who. It's just like if, let's say I worked with, I had coworkers, and with the coworkers, like all of them, let's say there's like 3 people on the team, and they're all like gym junkies, right? If I get there in the morning and I bring donuts and a bunch of sugar, you know what I mean? I know they don't eat it. Why would I bring it?
And then you're going to be upset because no one ate my donuts.
They're going to be like, dude, we don't eat that. Like we're into the protein bars and
you
protein
got a chicken
shakes.
that you blended up.
Right. It's just like, why would you do that to yourself? Like I get that it would be a nice gesture for me because I would like it, but that's where, and that's an interesting point, right? What you think romantic, what other people think is romantic. Isn't always the same thing, man.
It's the same thing with the love language. I'll bring it back to that. Like, if I have a certain love language and I'm doing that for you, but that's not yours, it's not going to mean the same to you. It's not going to land. And I'm going to get hurt because I'm like, what do you mean you don't like my gifts?
Right. That's why I think with even that, when it comes to romance and the love languages, I think it is, I don't want to say better, but there are advantages of being on the same level with that person if they reciprocate. And it could be sometimes here's another thing, right? Like even like texting one another, right? So like sometimes if you're dating somebody new and you just love texting, you just want to hear from them or whatever, and you text them, and then they give you like word answers or whatever, they reciprocate, but that's just not their thing.
Right.
And it's just like, hey, it's not that I don't like texting you, I just don't like texting people in general. Right. And if you genuinely, they're never on their phone, like they misplace it all the time because they're like, I don't even know where my phone is. Like, let's go anyways. Yeah. But you're like, what? What do you mean? We're walking out the house, right? She's like, yeah, I'm fine. I'll be fine with that. I'm like, no, I think you should find it. Let me like, you don't even want to leave without a phone. Yeah. But there are people out there that are like, I don't get on my phone very much. I don't, it's not my thing. So when that happens, again, it could be that disconnect because I like doing that. And a lot of times because it's a different language or it's a different way that they show affection, if you will, it sometimes can't last.
Do you think that'd be another good question to ask when you first start dating someone is how would you like to be romanced? Or what is your definition of romance?
I think that'd be a great question.
You get a lot of head scratchers. I don't know.
I think they used to have that on the dating sites because they have like little questions that you can answer. Like what's a great date for you? And sometimes they'll give you multiple choices. Sometimes it'll be like, oh, like to stay in and watch TV. Other times like to get decked out. Other times it might be like a sporting event. But that's more of a date. But yeah romance obviously is going to be a little bit different because how you want to be romanced. Now again, for a guy, he might have a hard time answering that question. I most certainly did. So
yeah.
But, for a woman, she might know exactly what she enjoys and doesn't enjoy when she wants to be romanced.
You should tell people what you like. I just think we could avoid a lot of things if people just...
Yeah, I've gotten to a point in my life where I wasn't, it's not that it's blunt, but a lot of times I just like to put things out there and be like, okay, let's talk about this and get this out of the way. Because again, even with the dating multiple people, like there's this thing, right? And I don't even know if they do that, but I'd say you are dating multiple people or you're dating just that one person, but you never had the conversation of whether or not that other person is just dating you exclusively. It's a good idea to go ahead and have that conversation and just say, hey, we've been seeing each other a couple of times or whatever. I'm not seeing anybody else. Are you seeing anybody else? Because you can just naturally progress with the relationship. But we talked about that. I don't know what episode it was, but you can naturally progress, let's say 3 months, 6 months into it. And then you find out, oh, I'm dating somebody else too. And it's just like, you can't get mad at them because you never had that conversation. You could get mad. I mean,
I'll be mad.
You're going to feel however you feel. You know what I'm saying? But it's hard to hold it against them because we technically never talked about it. And so sometimes it's good to just kind of put it out there and see kind of where you're at. Do
people still do that though, where they're casually dating someone for long periods of time without having that conversation?
I don't know.
I don't know if people still do that.
I've never done that myself, but I know I've heard other guys tell me that that's come back and backfired on them. Or what ends up happening is, again, let's say they start to like one more than the other, and they don't know how to break off the other one or whatever. Or let's say they do break it off with the other one, and the one that they were pursuing, let's say at that point they're not dating anymore. Let's say they dated 6 months, right? And he broke up with the other one on the 5th month. And so on the 6th month, you guys going strong, and let's say it comes up in conversation. It's like, hey, are you dating anybody else? And he's like, well, I was, but not anymore. It's like, okay, when did that stop?
You better lie. You about to lose 2 ladies.
I'm just saying, right? Like stuff happens. Social media is another one because, again, let's say you are dating exclusively. You see them with other people on, taking selfies and stuff. Like that's not
I just don't know if that really still happens.
Yeah, because it could be a friend. So like, let's say I've had this scenario. It's like, oh, I'm going out with friends. It's like, okay, cool. And then they start posting pics, and it's like other dudes out there too in the pictures. And I'm like, oh, that dude. I thought it was just.
But how long are you dating this person at that point?
Oh, I can't remember at the time, but nevertheless, it's always good. And again, this is just to bring it back on track, right? It's in regards to romance. So I think, that conversation should be had. I think when you get to know that person and you ask them that question, how do you like to be romanced? And she tells you, well, I like it when, you dress up, you open up the door for me. I like going out to really nice restaurants, try something different. I'm a foodie, whatever. It's like, great. She might be like, well, for me, I like things low key. I don't like making splashy things, blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, cool. Then you could know at that point as a dude, it's like, okay, if I do want to continue pursuing her, she's giving me the roadmap of what I need to get there.
So as a man, let me ask you, do you feel any type of way of the fact that men are always having to romance women and you may not get that in return? Even though I know you don't know exactly for yourself, but still... do you feel slighted at all, or do you think it's just a man's role to be the romantic?
I think it just comes, well, it used to be anyways. I don't know what most men do now. Like a young man, I couldn't tell you what, if anything, they do anything romantic. I think for me, I enjoy the wooing, if you will. And in the relationships in the past, if I stopped doing it, I don't know why I stopped doing it. But it's usually the beginning of the end as soon as.
But you don't care that she's not wooing you.
Again, we don't look for it. I kind of feel like we just constantly. The Notebook is a prime example, right? Because he just wouldn't stop. And to the very end, he was still reading to her like he would not let her go. And everybody says, "Oh, this is a great thing," right? But he just was constantly pursuing her. He just never stopped, no matter what obstacles. For a guy, there's something, well, let me just say it for me. There's something built inside of me that I need a goal. I need something to pursue. don't necessarily need to be a level, but I just need to constantly pursue. So if you look at it from, and I'm not, this is probably a bad analogy and I don't want to get dark, but infidelity, right? One thing that ends up happening is that the romance is lost. And it's just like, I want to feel wanted. I want to feel desired. I want to feel, courted. And for the guys, same thing. It's like my wife doesn't pay attention to me. She tells me no all the time. She never wants to be intimate with me. So then they start seeking that in other places. And that's not always, that's just a scenario. But that's telling you something. Like that romance, the chasing, the back and forth, the desire has left. And so once that starts to go, as humans, we want to be desired to a certain degree. Yeah. So I think once you, if you romance a woman, right, and you do things that she likes and whatever, and you're on good terms, she's going to reciprocate that, and she'll let you know that it's, it's a good thing, whatever. And again, how men pursue women versus how women pursue men are different. But yeah, I don't know. It's part of it. It's just the way things are.
Yeah.
I don't mind it so much. I think it's okay because guys do tend to sometimes forget that, especially if you're with a wonderful woman, you forget she's wonderful. And sometimes you take it for granted. And it's just like, okay, if you start paying attention to her doing things, it's only going to get better. Yeah. If she's doing that and you're not even half trying, like put in some effort and you'll see like things will go even better for you as time goes on.
I think I just have a certain feeling about women who refuse to romance their partner. They're kind of like, my job is to be here, show up, and that's it. I have real issues with that because I think if you're trying to be decent to anybody, and even in a friendship, if you were friends with somebody that you only gave, and they took, and then you can't get the same, it's not any different. Right. And I don't know why women think that. Like, I don't know what the romantic part would be for a guy, like what I could do exactly, but you can't just not do anything caring or supportive or whatever it is that you feel your partner needs for you to be like.
I think it boils down to effort, to be honest with you. It really does boil down to that at the end of the day, right? Because I get it, from a woman's side, let's say, you have kids, you have a job, you have other stuff going on, you come home, it's like, I'm not trying to romance my partner. And guys do the same thing. It's like, I've been working all day long. I've been dealing with these crazy people. And then I got to come home and there's your kids and they're asking me for stuff. They're in trouble, blah, blah, blah. I got to fix things around the house. I don't have time for romance. It's like, okay, great. But you do know that at some point things will start to fall apart really, really fast. Yeah. Because no matter what, you still need that as a man, as a human. And she still needs that as a woman, as a human. She needs to feel those things. Yeah. And if you're not trying with each other, eventually somebody else will come along and start doing that.
Well, let me clarify. I'm not talking down the women who, in that scenario where you're working all day, you have a bunch of kids and you have things. I'm talking about the women who, I just wanted to clarify that they refuse. Yeah. It's not like you are mentally exhausted.
We were talking about that in the speed dating.
Yes. For anyone who didn't listen, there was a woman and she, was explaining to Jose, like, I don't chase men. I don't text them first. I don't blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you can do that all you want, but you're probably going to be pretty lonely. But I'm talking about the women who are just like, why do I need to do anything for him? Like, I'm here.
Bending over backwards. Yeah, that's a totally different situation there. But I don't come around, or I don't come across those too often, to be honest with you.
I just hear about them, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, usually I wouldn't put forth the effort for that either, because again, it gets old really, really fast. If you're the only person that's always initiating everything,
I guess it helps me out in a dating sense, because when those men get to me and I do certain things, they're like amazed. They're like, I can't believe. And to me, it may seem like nothing, like making you dinner or something. It may be nothing, but some guys are like, I've never had anyone make me dinner.
You know what's funny? Out of from my dating life, I can't remember the last time somebody cooked me dinner. I know it has happened, but it's been a while. But yeah, some of them just don't like to cook, so you can't really fault them for that.
I know, but I mean, just little things. You, like I said, just finding out what your partner would like and doing those things, I think that's part of the romance.
Yeah.
Just putting in the effort. Like you said.
And don't get me wrong. Like, it's not like I like, it'd be okay. It'd be nice. Like when if somebody does cook for me, I think it's nice. I'm just not used to it. So that's the other thing too. Like if somebody would do it, it would really throw me off. I don't know that it would just be a nice gesture, I think.
So you wouldn't consider that romance?
I would, but I just wouldn't, you don't need to do that a lot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like it's nice, but you don't need to do that a lot. You know what I mean?
Well,
I do like a good home cooked meal from time to time. I'm not gonna lie, because I eat out a lot, but I cook for myself, and so so sometimes I don't mind cooking either. So just depends on what.
I'm not saying I wouldn't mind it, but you know me, I like to go out, so it's like I think it would be very sweet if some guy had like a meal and whatever, but that's not something I would like more than going out. Yeah. But I can appreciate if you do it from time to time, like, babe, it's really sweet. Like you're trying to be romantic. But
anyways, so this was a good episode. Romance. Hopefully it'll come back. But I think again for me, the takeaway after I did the research and everything was, I think you should continue. If you continue romancing your partner after you've been together, it can only bring you guys closer and closer together. Honestly,
I concur.
Yeah. So if you're in a relationship, definitely continue doing that. Continue romancing. Yeah. But till next time.
Okay. Bye.
All right. Bye.